Hey, I'm Ricky.
I'm Nova.
Have you ever looked at your spouse and said, you're being way too sensitive?
No. Yes.
Well, check it out. We want to talk about that tonight, so tune in for marriaging.
You and me, we got this. Gonna take some practice. Superpower oneness. We are marriaging. Oh, oh.
Wonder Twin Powers activate.
We are marriaging.
Hey, I'm Nova.
And I'm Ricky.
Weekly conversations that we're having inspiring present and future spouses to change their relational atmosphere while discovering and activating their oneness superpower.
That's a lot, and she's good at memorizing. That's why she says it. So we're trying to change atmosphere and Wonder Twin Power activate.
But if your marriage house is on fire, call 911.
Yeah, you need to get help. I mean, big time.
Yeah.
Get counseling, get help. It's worth the investment. But you're not going to get fixed here, but you hopefully will be encouraged. Yeah.
Tonight,
Yes.
we want to talk about
Sex.
No. Again with that. No, I want to make my own personal public announcement. Public
like
service
Yeah,
announcement.
like PCA, public service announcement.
PCA?
PSA?
SA.
PCA would be something else. PSA.
PCH.
It's a great highway.
So, if anyone has ever called you sensitive, or you're being so sensitive, I want to reframe it for you. You, my dears, are tenderhearted. Being so sensitive has this negative connotation, but being tenderhearted feels like caring and understanding and empathizing. And so I feel like I want to reframe the idea.
In our relationship, and it's not always like this. Some relationships are different, like the exact opposite.
Totally.
But for us, she's the tender-hearted one, and I'm the one that I'll be at a funeral of a friend passed away, funeral, and I'm literally having to get some tears so I don't seem like I'm insensitive.
You just weren't as in tune probably with some of your feelings.
I was in tune with my feelings.
Yeah.
That sounds like I'm going through puberty. I don't cry very much. I don't feel like I need to cry very much.
You handle criticism and stuff like you have like a pretty strong personality, and you, like I always say, you're kind of like a bulldog in the nicest of ways. I mean, you're just like, nothing's gonna take me out.
Yeah. And
you don't really get your feelings hurt. You're like, oh, okay. However, there have been times when, you have gotten your feelings hurt. And I want to say this, like, typically, I have been the more tenderhearted one. And then sometimes when you've shown me the vulnerability of being tender, it scared me because I'm like, wait, you're the strong one. I remember it causing kind of like well, why can't I tell you that you hurt my feelings or that hurts? I do feel like it took me aback a little bit, but then I realized, oh my goodness, like this is good because he's getting it. But I wasn't prepared for it.
That was last year, 24 years.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, totally. So whoever is the least tenderhearted in the relationship, it's okay to actually be who you are. You don't have to strum up tears or try to fake emotion just so that your significant other feels like you're connecting. However, it's also okay to feel things.
Maybe I shut down your tenderness, so you're like, well, then I'm just not gonna say.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I'm sorry.
But no, it's okay because I've done that with you.
Yeah. It makes me want to cry. Like, oh.
But why are you crying?
I don't know, because I'm
because she's
tenderhearted. It's awesome that after 24 years we're still learning. Oof. Probably, that vulnerability and transparency, like sometimes being the tender one, maybe I've looked too much to you to be so strong. And then when you're not strong, it kind of freaks me out. Allowing you to express that and accept you and love you and not be afraid, of your vulnerability or your your tenderness. And
the last 3 weeks we've been talking about the Wonder Twins. That was my why. So there's these two, this brother and sister, and they're superheroes, but the only way they can activate their superhero-ness is if they combine forces and they Wonder Twin power activate. And you talked about environment.
Yeah, and how, like, you know, we create this environment for each other. If I say, hey, Ricky, I really love you and I'm really empathetic, but then I don't welcome, you know, your tenderness, then that means it's kind of a, you know, phony thing. Like, I am able to create an atmosphere where you feel like there's a soft landing for you no matter what.
So that's the atmosphere element, and then the superhero, you know, the superpowers that only get activated when they're together. In this case, she's the empathetic one, the tender-hearted one. So we could step into an elevator or speak to a waiter or waitress and who's having a rough day, and next thing you know, both Nova and the waitress are crying, and I'm
Straight
getting the
up
food.
happens all the time.
I mean, literally, we've stepped into an elevator going 3 floors, and before we get to the 3rd floor,
Like,
the whole elevator's crying and hugging and praying, and I'm just like, what in the world? My superhero power is strength. So what happens if I say I'm strong, we don't cry? Now I'm not activating our superpowers.
Yeah. I have remembered times when maybe I've been counseling a younger woman or whatever, and we're together, and I'm using that gift of empathy, and we're there and we're in it, and you are in the background and you have this heart to serve, and so you are creating atmosphere, but you and I are doing this.
Your superpower is empathy and being tenderhearted, and my superpower is strength. And so when those two combine, when we activate those two powers, that looks like me creating room for her to be empathetic to people and for her to lean on my strength. So here's something that I think would be really beneficial in your relationship this week. Okay, so in the next 7 days, let's identify who's more tenderhearted and who's more strong. And it's okay if it's not the guy who's strong. I have friends that cry all the time. Her brother is like 6'1" or 2". He's massive, muscly guy.
He has a pretty good combo of, like...
And that dude can cry at the drop of a hat. So he's very tenderhearted.
Yeah, he is.
But he's also strong, so he's kind of got both.
He's like a way superpower. He's an anomaly.
He's
put him over here.
Like Joanna, who had a crush on me when we were kids.
Oh my goodness.
Just saying.
I'm wearing her Fifth and Wall t-shirt right now too. She is an amazing company. Anyway.
So first thing you can do is identify who is more tender in the relationship and who holds the superpower of super strong, right? Yeah. And the second thing they could probably practice is then, once you identify, hey, you're more tenderhearted than I am, tell me what it looks like from your eyes when you see me being strong or tender. What do you see?
Yeah, what do you see? And then what do you see from your vantage point when you see me being strong?
Tell me what it looks like when I'm being too strong, and then tell me what it looks like when I'm being too tender. It's like the extreme, right?
Notice we didn't say too sensitive.
We don't say that. The S word.
Should I say why? Should I give my little background? Okay. And this is not a knock on my family. This is just where I came from. But I was the youngest kid. I was the last one. I was a little bit of an afterthought, but a gift. I remember just I was always singing and blah, blah, blah. And I remember just being like, be quiet, and be saying like, you're so sensitive, Nova, you're so sensitive. And it really became this, it's not okay to have emotion. It's not okay to be sensitive or tender. It made me feel shame for being tender and sensitive. But then I realized years later that the truth is I didn't need to be shameful. It was actually a gift that just hadn't been unopened yet. And you actually helped me, because we came together and you helped me open and realize that it is a gift to be able to be tender towards people and see into people's lives. And in the same way, we're like, right, our greatest strength can be our greatest weakness. And so understanding that about your tenderness or your sensitivity and even about like being the strong one, right? It's like your greatest strength is being strong, but then sometimes it can be your greatest weakness.
Yeah.
The reason why this is kind of a hot topic for us, because we've had to learn to navigate, you know, what it looks like to be healthy in our tenderness and healthy in our strength as we come together.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes I'm still overtly sensitive to things, and then, you know, I can recognize it. I think that's where, like, you know, as growing comes in and learning, it's like I can recognize it and go, okay, I'm sorry, I was very overly sensitive with that, and I didn't really need to be, you know, that sensitive about that.
Your heartedness has rubbed off on me, and it's helped me be a better leader. It's helped me lead my team, be a better pastor, be a better father to my little girl, even to my son, to be more tender towards him.
I can recognize when I am that way.
Totally.
But I know most of the time I'm awesome.
It's true. It's true.
No, most of the time I'm hopefully living in, as I, you know, as I am in tune that with God, that I'm, you know, really self-aware and aware of my emotions and how I'm receiving things.
Homework assignment is this, like, you're looking at each other and you have this conversation, you know what I mean? Just like that. And it could be at Starbucks, that's fine, but what you don't want to do is you have a cell phone and you even put the cell phone on the table and then you're having this conversation, because even just putting the cell phone on the table is saying, just in case somebody else more important is on the other end of that, I'm going to have to look at it, right? Yeah. And then we check all the time. So, like, check it out. Put your cell phone in the car and lock it. Lock the cell phone in the car, right? Or put it in your purse.
Yeah.
Right? And then look eye to eye. And the homework really it's really a conversation. That's all of our homeworks are. Just P.S. The right answer is it's a conversation. And
always. The answer is C, conversation.
You're going to look in each other's eyes, say, hey, first of all, remember, the first thing is you're going to identify who's the tender one. And now, if you're both like super tender, it's probably like a cry fest constantly.
Just go to the beach.
Just stay away from romantic movies and, you know, funeral homes and stuff. And maybe it's like two strong individuals where you're just like always like, you know.
And maybe how can we become more tender?
That's it. So it's identifying who you guys are, and then to say, hey, if I'm a strong one, how can I lean towards tenderness? And then if you're the tender one, how can you lean towards being more strong? Or if we're too strong, how can we tone it down? If we're too tender, we're crying all the time, how can we ramp it up a bit? And essentially you're putting topics on the table that potentially you don't talk about all the time, and that's our job, to try to pull things up.
Yeah.
Right?
Have a conversation.
Have a conversation.
I'm Nova.
And I'm Ricky.
And we are marriaging.
We are marriaging.